This is News Fash, the podcast where fashion and news meet for your weekly dose of insider insights. I'm your host, fashion journalist Moshe Lundstrom-Halbert, and together we're going to stay up to date and open to learn about fashion from a variety of perspectives. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another News Fash Live. We have a lot to discuss because, of course, it was the Met Gala. I don't know about you, but for me, it does take me a little bit of time to process this much fashion and this many looks all at once, and to kind of adjust it all and to think about Met Gala theme in context and what looks really stood out days later, I think is a good indicator of the most memorable fashion from the night. And I thought we could also talk about a few of the other top fashion news stories of the week, from new exhibit that's opened in Paris to somebody who I think is really emerging as somebody we're going to see front row and in fashion ad campaigns soon, a kind of pop cultural figure, if you can guess who that might be. But to get us started, I wanted to tell you about the Met Gala look that days later I haven't been able to get out of my mind. The one that for me, and this does not usually happen, I have to say, was the clear standout of the night, was by far my favorite, from both nailing the theme to creating a visually stunning look, to the photographs that came out of that look, to the wearer themselves embodying the look, to the work of the designer being really brilliant, to the tailoring being completely masterful. Any ideas who I might be talking about here? All of those descriptors. Who for you was that person at the Met Gala? Well, for me, it was none other than Jodie Turner-Smith, the British Jamaican actress who wore a burgundy or oxblood creation by Daniel Lee for Burberry. Now, I have a soft spot for Daniel Lee's work, but I've been waiting for him to have a knockout red carpet moment. I don't even think he had one when he was at Bottega Veneta, certainly not at this level. And since he arrived at Burberry, and obviously Burberry, it's not really a red carpet brand. I thought it was interesting a few years ago, maybe it was like 2 now, when he first started at the house, his first Met Gala that he participated in with Burberry. He kind of just dressed everyone in his like new Burberry kind of royal blue that they had done for the logo. It wasn't super imaginative and it felt very branded. So to be honest, my hopes were not that high, because I think Burberry really excels when it comes to outerwear and fashion shows and more street style. This look on Jodie Turner-Smith, the articulation of the tailoring around the hip area, the padded hip with that super cinched waist and that the pleating around the waistline, the framing that the tailoring provided around the lapel and collar area, then the train and bustle exposing kind of this tailed coat. We did see a lot of these of the night, and I'm going to be talking through what I think are some of the main takeaways from a trend standpoint that you and me and all of us could even incorporate and wear from the Met Gala. But this idea of like a train, a cape, a bustle, a tailed jacket, hers kind of had all of those in one, with a trim, beautifully cut trouser underneath, I thought was absolutely smashing. And it was very textural. So the jacket was like this leathery material pressed with an almost like brocade jacquard effect. And then her trousers were also a brocade jacquard. It almost looked like she was in this archival piece, this feat of tailoring, and then had been like dipped in a vat of oil or like gone swimming, because everything from her skin to her material was just saucy and glossy. And that whole, it didn't even feel like it belonged on a red carpet, or, you know, which is, the carpets are never even, most of the times, not even red these days. In this case, it was blue. But it looked like it came out of a very otherworldly fashion editorial that perhaps Vogue would have done and had styled by Grace Coddington. Like, there was this twisted fairy tale element to it. And the dandyism was so front and center in the expressiveness, and then also that hat. I need to find out who the milliner was too. Perhaps they got Stephen Jones to do that because he's based in London for the most part. But it was a straw, again, glossy, oxblood boater, and the hat tilt was just right. This is something I fixate or obsess over a lot on Newsflash. That is a look that belonged in the exhibit. And I don't think you can say that of that many other looks that we saw. Of course, there were so many others that were phenomenal. And a lot of them, like even just scrolling through, you don't realize in the moment. I think probably translated better in person than the photographs. Quite a high pressure situation to try to get a photograph of such a like important look that people have spent so much time and money and energy on. And then you're just relying on these photographs to translate. Stephanie Renea said, I was going to post something about the Met Gala. Do you think people are over it now? Too late? No, I don't. I think the exhibit's going to be on for the next few months. And I think the whole point of the gala is to not just create a one and done fashion moment, but it is to spark conversation over an extended period of time and to think about anytime like we're taking in or absorbing information around fashion. I think it's an opportunity to contextualize it within history and then to also modernize it and think about what it could mean for us. Like, I don't know about you, which is something I do happen to say here a lot on Newsflash, because I don't know about you and I don't want to make assumptions. But for me, one of my main takeaways, and this is one of the trends that I did want to talk about that I think came out of the Met Gala the strongest, was this idea of the blank canvas that a fabulous set of suiting can provide, and that it really isn't one size or one style meets all. And we're really seeing that now, like Kendall Jenner in that really immaculate skirt suit. Rihanna also wore a skirt suit by Marc Jacobs. Of course, there was a ton of pantsuits. For me, I was like, you know what? I have a lot of tailoring in my wardrobe, but do I have one or two or three immaculate smoking suits? No, I don't. And just the other day, I was in London. I was actually on Savile Row, and my husband needed a tuxedo for a black tie event. And he had said, I don't really have any tuxedos that I like. All my tuxedos feel and look kind of cheap because I've never properly invested in one because you don't wear them that often, but this is a really important occasion. And we have a bunch of weddings coming up this summer too. So we decided to go to Huntsman, which is an incredible tailor on Savile Row. And we had a connection there and a tailor that was going to whip something up really quickly for us. Anyways, seeing the process of him getting fitted in a double-breasted tuxedo suit that actually suited him, and I would argue was his dandy moment, because he was taking something that is a convention, which is a tuxedo, which is a suit, and he was making it his own through the tailoring and then through the accessorizing, is an experience that we all ought to give ourselves, even if we can't go to Savile Row, if that's not in our, schedule or budget or all of the above. Certainly is not in mine yet, but it was in my husband's. And I think what you probably can do though, from all ends of the budget and spectrum, is like source a great, beautifully cut vintage suit on the RealReal. Check the measurements of it. Measure yourself. Great exercise is to know and have your own current measurements on file in a little note on your phone that you can refer back to. Find a suit within your measurements, which is a wonderful thing to do, and or find a suit that you absolutely love that's cut a little large and get it for a song and get it tailored just for you, I think is another really good solution. Okay, Jawish says, what is your take on Burberry at the moment? I think Burberry is at a really interesting inflection point, and I think that their marketing and their fashion shows and just the kind of goodwill that they have is starting to gel together. And I really appreciate that they are allowing Daniel Lee to find his footing in the role, because I don't think it necessarily has always just made sense from the jump. I think there's been little hiccups along the way. It's a very big and large organization and house and cultural institution, I would argue too. And it means a lot to many different people, certainly British people as well. So I think he's finally building some bridges over very troubled water. And I think he's doing a really good job and deserves credit for that. And I appreciate that the Burberry powers that be, and now with Joshua Schulman as the CEO, are giving him time, because I think a lot of times what happens is we too quickly make rash decisions on designers and they get cycled out. And sometimes it's best to just give people a little bit more time to get their feet wet and find their footing. And that was a lot of like feet related metaphors, but you get what I'm saying. Sniffest says Andre 3000 with the piano and on his back had me gagged. Yes. Andre 3000, I almost wonder if they ever asked him to be a co-chair as well, because he's such a modern day dandy in every way that word can be interpreted. He's a bit eccentric. He likes to exist both front and center in pop culture, but also on the fringes of it. And he truly is his own person and uses every bit of self, his interior world, his exterior world, and also his artistic expression to be as individual as possible. And to me, that's what dandyism often symbolizes: breaking norms and finding out ways to insert one's signature into everything that they do. Yeah, Andre 3000, what he does really transcends fashion. It's just always imbued with such a strong sense of personal style. I would argue that like Lauryn Hill is the same way too. It doesn't really matter who the designer is, what she's wearing, how it suits a theme, how it suits an occasion. She's so always embodying what it means to be Lauryn Hill. And I think when you've created a body of work that will stand the test of time, the way Andre 3000 has, and the way Lauryn Hill has, the way Erykah Badu has. I wish that she had really been at the Met Gala as well, because I would have loved to see her take on dandyism. But I have to say, like, it was just such an overwhelmingly incredible reminder of like how much personal style so many Black people have, just like even in their pinky finger. And when they fully express themselves and given jurisdiction and resources and spaces to do so, how they really just thrive and shine. I think we saw that time and time and time again. I loved Cardi B. She was also in Burberry. I thought Nicki Minaj looked incredible. The list goes on, but it was just so wonderful to see so much Black talent like being celebrated, and that was the theme of the whole exhibit, and that everyone was really having fun with this idea of like the men were able to be their most expressive selves within menswear. And then there is something that really happens when women experiment with menswear too, which is just incredibly charming. And then everyone else in between, the non-binary attendees and they thems that were there as well too. I think the theme like couldn't have been more rife with possibilities for people to just like really show up fully as themselves, even though they were the most outlandish version of themselves. Does that make sense? I found that very wonderful. Vision Aaron says, yes, for our discussion and conversation. I'm so glad you're here, Vision Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, somebody else said that they loved Whoopi Goldberg's outfit. I agree. Like the word that came to mind for me, and there's a few people that really had this, is just regal. You know, I wanted to talk about this separately, but last week was it last week or was it the week before? I worked on a story with Björk in London. And there are certain people, some certain pop cultural figures that have in real life, and it translates into everything that they do, this like regal quality. Björk is one of them. Whoopi Goldberg is also one of them. Obviously, Diana Ross is one of them too. And she was also at the Met Gala. Like it's an aura. It's a way that people carry themselves. It's almost like you want to stand up a little bit straighter in their presence, and you feel that you are in the presence of royalty. And I think Whoopi Goldberg's outfit really emphasized that point. And I mean, what a living legend, and what a multi-hyphenate, and what a woman of style. Like her ability to wear fashion and not have it ever wear her, Whoopi Goldberg. And she's done that for such a long time. And she just like really doesn't, she's just so unbothered and doesn't give a fuck if people get her right now, because I think she knows that her work really stands the test of time. So yes, I loved Whoopi Goldberg's outfit. Somebody said, or did I look in your dad's closet? I don't really know what that means, but my dad is a very snappy dresser. And if you're on my close friends story on Instagram, you might have seen some examples of that this week. He's been wearing little like bucket hats turned up because my family was visiting, and he's very much into those Timberland boat shoes. Loves a good boat shoe, my dad does. Junia says, hi, have you told the story behind Björk's Cornucopia premiere yet? Yes, I did a video about it, and my story on it is out in Monocle, and you can read it now, and I linked to it also on my Instagram. So check that out because that was a wonderful experience, and I'm going to talk about it shortly once I get through this Met Gala segment we're having here on TikTok Live. Thank you so much to everyone that's joining me as well. It really means a lot that you're spending a bit of your precious time here with me. Jacob says, I'm a pattern maker and tailor, and I did the dress for a previous Met Gala. Jacob, that is amazing. Kudos to you. What an accomplishment. Chic Stacy says, hi, love. Hello, right back at you. Oh, yes, Janelle Monáe. Thank you for reminding me. Soli Bowie says, Janelle Monáe, perfection. I love a twofer look, and I love a twofer look that like where it really relates to each other. Perhaps with Coleman Domingo, there could have been more of a through line between the gloriousness of his cape, which I thought was a beautiful piece, but I don't know. He just seemed a lot more himself in that incredible gray suit by Valentino. I love what him and Alessandro Michele are doing. I think Coleman Domingo's like his new Harry Styles in a way, you know, somebody who can really take a designer's work and wear it so well. Again, never have it wear them. And I think give other people permission and also encouragement to try the looks themselves who otherwise might not have. I think Coleman Domingo is hugely influential right now in the menswear space and just has so much personal style and panache and class. Just a classy man. And his husband too. What a gorgeous couple. But yes, love Janelle Monáe in Tom Brown. Some Trey Stacey again said ALT with hearts. And I think you're referring to Andre Leon Talley. Yes. And that was kind of like the elephant in the room was the fact that it's really bittersweet to have this exhibit only happen after Andre Leon Talley is no longer here. And the fact that, you know, his relationship with the fashion industry and with Anna Wintour became fractured in the end there. And perhaps he didn't get to experience this moment when he was still alive of being fully celebrated because he was such a big part of the Met Gala and advised so many people. I really enjoyed watching the stories of Lauren Santo Domingo, who wore a really beautiful and interesting, I don't know if it maybe got lost a little bit in the photography of it all because it was quite simple looking, but more complicated and complex and interesting the more you looked at it. Christopher John Rogers, ivory, very distilled look that had elements of tailoring kind of come undone. But why did I bring her up? Because Lauren Santo Domingo on her Instagram stories did a whole thing where she went through all her Met Gala looks and talked about how Andre Leon Talley would always advise her on her hair and her makeup and her looks, and really was for a certain generation of like Vogue girls, Vogue women, Vogue people. He would just always tell people, like, give them advice. And I've even experienced this myself firsthand. I've told the story so many times, but if you haven't heard it, it's a good one, which is that I used to go to the Manolo Blahnik sample sale when I lived in New York, and it would be like a couple times a year. And Andre Leon Talley would like sit there in a big chair, kind of like this one, holding court in the center while all of us editors, and it would start at like 8 a.m., something crazy. We would go before work, would be trying on all the Manolos. And he would be like, yes, darling, no, we need to go higher up the calf. Don't cut the calf off. Or I think that I like the red pair better. And he would just like tell people what shoes they should get and encourage us to treat ourselves to Manolos. I mean, what an amazing man and legacy, and what an arbiter of style. I love that expression too, arbiter of style. I think we need to stop saying fashion icon and like say arbiter of style. It's a bit more descriptive and slightly less cliche. Oh, Solly Bowie said, I would have loved to see Janet Jackson at the gala. I know she would have been so good at that theme because she's had so many memorable fashion moments where she really dandied it up and explored like menswear tailoring at its most ultra feminine. if that makes sense. And on that body, that would have been incredible. I would have loved to see that. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. That person that was like, got me on a tangent about my dad said, I meant look for suits in your dad's closet. Yeah, that's a good idea. Although my dad like wouldn't, I give my dad suits from my husband's closet. I don't know if I'd want to like take suits from his, but he's got some really beautiful Armani suits in there and an amazing Armani trench from the 90s. Okay. Any others you wish had been at the Met Gala? Billy Porter. Yes. Lil Nas X, duh. Wisdom K, yes. June Ambrose, 1000%. This is out of left field, but it's just because I love her. And she does have quite of a mensy and like tailoring style. Where was Alexa Chung? Was she not there? I would have loved to see her. I always love to see what she wears at the Met. Okay. How did so many ivory tux looks get past Anna? They were gorgeous though, like the Gap look and Zendaya's. Yes, the Gap look on Laura Harrier by Zach Posen, and Zendaya's look, which was Louis Vuitton and caused a whole scandal because Anna Swy wore a very similar look by Dior. And that whole thing is so strange to me because the brands like Dior and Louis Vuitton are both owned by LVMH. And you'd think there would be some system where brands that are part of the same parent company are communicating with each other to make sure that their clients and their fashion message is differentiated enough. So I don't think that is the fault of like the stylist Law Roach or Carla Welch who styled Anna Swy. Like they can't be speaking to each other and every stylist about every look. Like how daunting would that be? I think that really does come down to the brands not communicating properly. And I loved all the ivory tux looks. I think it started to get a little bit repetitive and redundant, but I did a whole post about that. You can go see where I pulled like every single ivory almost tux and suit look. So you can see how like it really is a staple and it can take on so many different iterations. It can feel kind of Bianca Jagger-esque, a romanticized version of like the strictness of a black suit. The white suit just feels like it takes on a more almost confident posture about it. Yeah, there was something just very standout about all the white suits. It certainly made me want to add one of those to my wardrobe. Probably, I mean, the one by Zendaya was just cut on Zendaya was cut so immaculately, but there was a lot of really good ones. I also liked Madonna's look in Marc Jacobs and how she did the full cummerbund and even the cigar. Like it worked for me. It really did. Mia says Andre 3000 or MIA. Andre 3000 understood the assignment. Yes, he did. And he always does. Somebody else says, I shared my favorite ALT video. I also shared one of mine recently. If yours is the same as mine, it's the one where somebody asks a question at like a panel or a talk or a Q&A that he's doing. And he just makes her stand up and shows everyone her outfit and goes bit by bit about each element of her outfit and why he thinks it's working and why she should be celebrated. It's incredibly sweet. And you just know that moments like that, like somebody will never forget. I'll never forget like one time Corinne Roitfeld complimented my outfit when I interviewed her once in Tokyo and I was wearing this like equipment or équipement blouse. She used to design her own equipment, or her husband did. So she worked a lot in that brand and she used to wear it a lot. So I was like, oh, she'll like this if I wear this. Cause that's a trick I used to do a lot more when I was up and coming and starting my career in journalism and would get to interview people is like, I would try to figure out like, what can I wear that will be an icebreaker here or ingratiate this person to me? And I would kind of like method dress for interviews. And yeah, I'd done that before with Victoria Beckham as well. I've done that. Who else have I done that with? Oh, you know what I was also thinking about the other day? Does anyone else remember the designer Loren Scott? Mick Jagger like wished her a happy birthday. She passed away from suicide a few years ago. I used to live really close to her in Chelsea and would like pass her flat most days on the way to the gym and just like look up and think, and remember the time that I had interviewed her when I was back in Toronto, and she was so lovely to me. And I think she could tell that I was maybe like intimidated by her or nervous or a bit new. And she took it upon herself to write my boss after the interview to say what a good job I did. And I'll never forget that. Like she was such a gracious and kind and deeply elegant woman who is missed by very many. She used to style Nicole Kidman. That was like one of her best friends. And so, yeah, it made me miss her. And I don't know why I just thought of this, but the reason I brought this up is because of that Andre Leon Talley moment. Like when somebody who you admire pays you a compliment or does something kind for you, just a small gesture like that, you never forget it. And I'm sure that you are admired by somebody or mean something to somebody, you mentor somebody. Maybe there's an opportunity there where you can also make them feel really good about themselves in one way or another, the way those people did for me. I'm getting very nice comments and compliments here that I feel, even blushing reading, but thank you so much. Somebody says, love, love, love your sense of style. Somebody says, love you so much. Thank you very much. It means a lot to have support here for Newsfash and for this podcast and for the work that I'm doing, which is really just coming from the heart. And I'm so lucky that I found an audience for it. So, because a lot of the work you do as a journalist is very lonely, you're just like isolated and writing by yourself. Building Newsfash has been such a wonderful outlet for me because there really is like a back and forth. If you're writing an article and it's going up on a website, no matter how prestigious the brand is, you don't get a lot of feedback. You really don't. And it doesn't really feel like a conversation. It feels like, okay, I've put this out there. It's got my name on it. It's satisfying my ego, but it's not necessarily like satisfying inner self and my need to connect with people around things that I care about. And Newsfash does. So I really appreciate everyone that participates with me. Ray Ficadic says, are the Met themes usually connected to a person, like this year to Leon Talley? Well, it wasn't fully Leon Talley. It was the overall concept of superfine tailoring Black style and like the kind of art of the Black dandy, and looking at how Black dandies were really born out of the fact that, they started with the fact that Black people were brought to the United States through the slave trade from Africa, were made to wear clothes that no longer reflected their cultural dress of wherever they had come from. And then also the style that was born when the slave trade was abolished and there were somewhat more civil liberties given to Black people, but certainly not the same kinds of access to opportunities. And there was still so much disparity. But at the same time, it just goes to show you that if people have a need to express themselves, that they'll become extremely resourceful and figure out ways to make things or find things or put things together in insanely creative, stylish new ways, which is what the dandies did. And I think it's a really beautiful story of resilience and self-expression and actualization. And it's wonderful that the Met is honoring that through the years, starting with that starting point, but looking at where the Black dandy is now and all of these pivotal Black figures in fashion today, be it like Sergio Hudson, who dressed 18 people, or Pharrell, or Grace Wales Bonner, who is virtually responsible for this overall resurgence of Adidas. I think especially they're so lucky to have found her in the wake of like the shit show that was the Yeezy debacle. I mean, I personally, and I've spoken about this before too, but I will continue to speak about it. I don't fuck with Adidas anymore. I won't wear it, anything like that after the Yeezy thing. I think it was just such an example of like blatant anti-Semitism being pushed underground in order to prioritize profit. But like I said, they're so damn lucky that Grace Wales Bonner came around and saved the day. She's a British Jamaican designer who, through her collaborations, really propelled the Samba and Gazelle sneakers to the height of fashion, and even like the Adidas tracksuit, and just made the three stripes and the Adidas symbolism cool again, is my opinion. MIA said Billie Eilish would have been perfect. Yes, where was Billie Eilish? Surprising she wasn't there. Also surprising Beyonce wasn't there, but she's currently on tour. But I just would have loved to see, the Cowboy Carter Gone Dandy treatment done probably completely like in some form of denim or something. Would have loved to see that. Ooh, Solly Bowie said, I would have also loved to see Lenny Kravitz. Yes. Did anyone else see that Lenny Kravitz story recently in Architectural Digest, and what an incredible home he has in France. I also love the story from years back on his home in Brazil. I just total modern day dandy. And the idea of being a dandy too, for me, it's not just about what you wear. It's like how you live your life, how you carry yourself, how you decorate spaces, how you hold a drink, how you pose for a photograph, like the music you listen to, the car you drive, the way you walk. It's like a full embodiment of being head turning and cool as fuck at every moment. That's a dandy to me. And that's Lenny Kravitz. This commenter also said Snoop Dogg. Yeah, that would have been great. Missy Elliott, so true. And Big Boy. Would have loved to see their takes on dandies as well. I love that one, posted that one from the September issue film. I can't remember what you're referring to because I've just been like going on tangent after tangent this episode, but I'm glad it's resonating. Ooh, LA Sisters Closet said, I met ALT on the streets of NYC in the 80s. He was wearing a red Adidas tracksuit. Amazing. I guess he did go through like a tracksuit era. I believe I remember he wrote about that in his column that he used to have for Vogue. Yes. Anyone else remember that? MIA says white suits remind me of Liza Minnelli also. Totally. She owned a white suit for quite a while there. Kendra said, still mad I didn't get to see Wisdom K style look. Yes, I know. I looked into that a bit more and it seems like that all has to do with TikTok. Basically, TikTok is the reason he got invited last year. There were some people there though that like, I'm sorry, like Chance the Rapper. I would have rather seen Wisdom K there, but he was invited because TikTok was a sponsor and had a table last year, and they were not either of those things this year. I mean, maybe they had a table, but they definitely weren't a sponsor. I know someone who used to work at TikTok and gave me the details of how they like worked on that table, and it was a hell of a lot of work to get approvals for that. So I don't know, maybe they wanted to mix it up, but I thought that Lemmy, also from TikTok, was one of the best dressed people there as well. So he kind of like held the torch for the TikTokers. What did you think of Doechie's? Did not love the photographs of it that I saw personally. I thought it was very on theme. I thought it was, essentially an advertisement for Louis Vuitton. And I guess because we've been seeing her in a lot of Thom Browne and a lot of these kinds of like boxy cutoff suited looks lately, I think I'm ready for like what's next for Doechii stylistically, or like just pushing it more. I didn't love the length of the short. If I'm honest, I felt like it needed to be shorter or longer. It just was stopping at like too in between and not extreme enough of a spot for me. Sully Bowie says Meta had a table and they sent Amelia in that Durang. So yes, I guess it was Meta's year, and it wouldn't surprise me that they would bring Amelia because she creates so much content. Shalaka said, yes, would have loved to see her in Thom Browne, and somehow the branding of it all felt wrong. There was a lot of Thom Browne. I think some of my favorite Thom Browne looks was Zoe Saldana in Thom Browne? She looked amazing. Definitely Janelle Monáe, Walton Goggins, who I think is the new, but not new, but like breakout men's kind of celebrity of the moment that's going to be a fashion plate. You were going to see him at the next round of fashion shows for sure. And I could see him booking a campaign with like Prada, perhaps, or who else could we see Walton Goggins scoring a campaign with? Like, it's funny, he's got like, it's almost like he's like the convergence of like an elder heady boy meets there's something a little bit like, it's not quite Tom Ford, it's quirkier with him, but he looks really good, I think, in outfits that have like are a complete send up of classic looks that are completely distorted and things that are like quite plunging. That man loves some cleavage. Okay. Somebody else said Mona Patel. Yes, Mona Patel looked smashing. Absolutely smashing. Oh my God, that whole look, I would just love to wear to Royal Ascot or something, or to one of the big races with the hat and the cane. Yeah, I have a whole thing of walking sticks by my front door. I'm not exactly sure why, but my husband felt we needed them. And I'm kind of like, should I start taking these out with me to just like complete a look? Because there were so many good cane walking stick moments at the Met Gala. And it is a really nice finishing touch, And there is something extremely characterful and badass about a walking walking stick? Like, are you struggling to walk? Or is it a weapon? Or is it both? I kind of love that about it. It's just a bit ambiguous and a bit ridiculous, but also practical all in one. Love it. Do we want to talk about the Björk thing now? But I did want to update you before I have to dash about a few more fashion news stories of the week in case you missed it and in case everything just got usurped by the Met Gala madness of it all. Well, there's an old historical couturier called Charles Frederick Worth, and he has a new exhibit at the Petit Palais in Paris. He's credited as the founding father of modern French fashion, but he's actually British. So I think that would be worth checking out. Also, Zara, on the other end of the spectrum, segue, has just turned 50. Can you believe it? 50 years old. I feel like I remember less than 20 years ago, like going into my first Zara. But Zara is owned by Inditex and is a Spanish company. And I guess they've been going in Spain for a while. But I also remember like H&M. I remember shopping there as a kid when I would go to Sweden for a summer camp, and it was like Hennes and Mauritz. And I'd be like, oh my God, Hennes and Mauritz is so cool. I loved it there so much. And I loved being able to go back to Canada and people be like, where's that from? And I'd be like, Hennes and Mauritz. And I would be like, it's kind of like the Gap, which was very cool at the time, of Sweden. And then it really started to bum me out when, it was exciting when H&M Hennes and Mauritz came. That's what H&M stands for, by the way. Hennes and Mauritz in Swedish, came to New York. And I used to go from Toronto to New York if I got good grades and would get to shop there. Even though my mom was a fashion designer, I still wanted my Hennes and Mauritz. But then when it became like more readily available, it just like wasn't as exciting or appealing. Again, I have no idea why I'm on that tangent, but it's caused someone to ask me the question, your take on Cause. Cause has gotten a lot better. Cause was boring me to tears a few years ago, but I think that they're finding a nice balance between like minimalism, but also wardrobe staples that have a little bit more, they're like very good dupes, I would say, because they're basically what they're doing is they're taking like little references from so many different brands and then combining it into one piece. So it's not direct knockoffs as much. The pieces I see, it's more like, oh, that's a little bit Alaya with that shape of that skirt, but then you've done it in denim, which Alaya also did. But then there's something that feels inherently a bit more Scandi about their take on it. Like it feels like it's the right amount of mishmash right now. And Other Stories, which is also owned by Hennes and Mauritz, which I just love saying. The H&M group, I think, is a little bit lost. And they've recently hired Jonathan Saunders, who's a great British designer who's been kind of under the radar for a while. He last was at Diane von Furstenberg to be their new creative director. So I think that might help. Somebody says, wait, I'm basically designing a sketch based on you. Your journalism helped my eyes open. Thank you so much. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much for being here and your support and the fact that you wouldn't even think of sketching little old me. I'm going to leave you with Björk. Okay, so last week, I went to the premiere of her new concert film, which is now in cinemas, and I believe you can stream on Apple TV, called Cornucopia, which is based upon her last tour. And if you are a massive Björk fan or just have like eyes and ears, you're going to love this. I've been lucky enough to be at a few Björk shows, and I was even at Coachella. If you go watch the like live stream of that, you can see me in it, just like having the best time of my life, because I was right at the front because I was there with my friend Edda Gudmundsdottir, basically, who's been on one of the first episodes of my podcast Newsflash. So go check that out. She's Björk's stylist. And so last minute she was like, Moshe, do you want to come to London? I was in the countryside of the UK and attend the premiere and do a story. Ended up writing it for Monocle. And so I arrive at the premiere. It's really just like her friends and family and collaborators and people on her team, many of which I know and have met and have worked with before, like her creative director, James Mary, who also does all her masks, Edda, who's my dear friend, who styles her. And then some new people that I got to meet, like Björk's neighbor, Isolde Ugodatter, who became the film director. Can you imagine? She was telling me like Björk asked me for coffee and then told me, can you direct my concert film? So basically it was filmed in Lisbon. And what I loved about it is like, I feel like a lot of concert films these days are trying to insert like a narrative through line, and Björk's concert in itself is just like an art piece and doesn't need the behind the scenes of it all. Like, I don't want to be taken out of the moment, and I love to learn about her process, but I also like to just be fully immersed in her art and her performance. And that's what the film is. You feel like submerged in the best way possible and surrounded by the visuals and the sound and the vision. And like, my whole article for Monocle was like, in our scroll age, is there any time and place for a concert film when we're inundated with snippets already? I mean, think of the Taylor Swift Eras tour or Beyonce. Like, you're seeing viral clips from it every night. But there's something about watching a show from start to finish that felt this experimental and intimate, but also like highly orchestrated and choreographed. Like, even the flautists, there's a septet of flautists called Vibra that are also going on tour separately, and they're wearing balmain couture, okay? Flautists in balmain couture from a collection that Olivier Rousting actually based upon Björk. How fucking cool is that? And their choreography, they're moving like jellyfish behind Björk. And she's this Arctic crustacean in this incredible noir ne Kionima look that was like all irregular lengths of tulle with this beautiful burgundy lace bodysuit by a German designer, Sarah. Oh God, Sarah, I'm blanking on your last name, but I met her at the premiere as well. And it was just fully incredible. I loved the film, and I loved speaking with the team and learning about how they made it and telling the story for Monocle. And then just also interrogating this concept of like, why have a concert film when you can just A, go to a concert in real life, or B, see these viral clips. But I think the concert film as a standalone art piece is really something to think about. Like, next time I have some kind of gathering at my home, I'm just going to put that on the telly and just have Björk's Cornucopia in the background, like with the sound on or off. I mean, obviously the sound is incredibly stunning, but even just the visuals have a sound, if that makes sense. They are so evocative. And so I really, really enjoyed that experience. And then afterwards, we all went around the corner to this party for Björk's like inner circle, and I was so lucky to be included in that. And the designer Aziz I met, who had made the look that she wore to the premiere, which is this incredible royal blue with a mask, and he's based in southern Germany and has also worked with Lady Gaga. Björk was like pouring champagne for everyone, and they were handing out ice lollies, as they call them in the UK, which are popsicles, very fancy British way of saying popsicles. And it was just such a wonderful time. And then we all walked to Piccadilly Square to watch a shorter like preview clip that was screened across the massive wraparound screens of Piccadilly, and just like watching Aziz watch Björk watch Cornucopia was just so great for me, because to see a designer see someone like Björk wear their work. And Björk is one of the only I would argue musicians and artists that literally every fashion designer is inspired by and also respects deeply, deeply. Every designer wants to dress Björk still to this day. And she's had that kind of consistent cultural relevance and heft, and been able to both exist in the zeitgeist but also transcend it for like since the 90s, and in Iceland even like earlier, because she sort of started off as a child star there. That's my newsflash homework for you for the week, is like go through the Björk discography and look at all the designers that she's championed along the way, from Alexander McQueen right up to this Aziz, who I only learned about through Björk. And then also go listen to her very first album. Speaking of albums, another Icelandic love of mine, Kaleo, fronted by a friend of mine, Jökull Juliusson, or JJ Juliusson. They just released their album yesterday called Mixed Emotions. It's stunning. And I've done a story about JJ's backstage and tour style before for Vogue Scandinavia. But the reason I bring him up is because him and I were talking about Björk one night, and he was telling me that you got to go listen to Björk's very first album, which almost has like a bit of a country twang to it. I'm telling you, insanely charming. Go listen, go on Spotify or wherever you get your albums and go to the very bottom, because she's had dozens of albums at this point, and listen to that. And I think it'll really fill you with lots of inspiration. Vision Aaron says, speaking of inspiration, Short clips are like snacks, but people don't seem to want to appreciate a full, healthy meal. Yes, and it's so important. And that's a great metaphor. Thank you so much for providing that for me, because that's really what Cornucopia is. It's like the most nourishing concert film experience where you're getting your protein, your carbs, your fats, your fruits and your veggies, like all in one. It's incredibly intellectually stimulating. And then also the ASMR and the eye candy of it all is just, I have to tell you, like it made the hairs on my arm stand on end. I've actually been thinking about waxing the hairs on my arms. And then I had that experience and I was like, but if I wax the hairs on my arms, then how am I going to know if the hairs on my arms are standing on end? How am I going to know that I'm having that visceral reaction to something? And that visceral reaction to something is what is my body telling me that I'm feeling something, and feeling things is really, really important. And finding things that make you feel things in this day and age when we're just numb to a lot of things and scroll and doom scroll our way through life. I think this was a really great reminder to go see live shows and to take in works in their entirety the way that the artist intended them, which somebody says instinct goosebumps. Yes. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. Seek out things this week. For me, it's always will be Björk and, fellow Icelandic creatives like Kaleo, like Leve, who's another incredible kind of neo jazz musician whose work inspires you and whose voice, whatever form voice takes, if it's like literally from their vocal cords or their words or their message, makes you feel something. Because life is too short to be numb to it all, and feeling something and having an emotional reaction to somebody else's form of expression, I think is what then allows you to put forth something into the world that is going to cause that reaction for somebody else. It really is that, like, it's that butterfly effect, right? Or it's that idea of paying it forward. When you receive, it makes it a lot easier to give. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I really enjoyed this chat. That wraps your news fash. I'm Moshe Lundstrom-Halbert. Stick with me here and over on TikTok to stay up to date on all things fashion. If you have any questions or guest suggestions or feedback, please drop us a line at moshe@newsfashmedia.com.